You told me on the phone just a week ago, you said, Rex, we need to do a podcast because I have a feeling that something could potentially take place. And first off, we do need to make a disclaimer here. This is for entertainment purposes only. This is a live action role-playing game. And this is also opinions. And when we think people around the world are amazing. So if we're referring to China, the people of China are absolutely beautiful, amazing. It's a beautiful country. Governance can be essential. You know, governments can be wonderful and amazing. We just want to make sure that we all have checks and balances and keep things fluid so that everybody can work together, because we're about bringing people up. We're about protecting people here at Leak Project. I'm sure Greg is as well. I know Greg personally. I mean, he's a good friend of mine. He's a dear friend of mine, and his heart and his mind, in my opinion, is absolutely in the right place. So we're going to talk about it. Greg, you look good, man.
Well, thank you, Rex. I'm wearing it, except for the rose-colored glasses. Everything I'm wearing came from you, at least from the waist up. Well,
waist up. Hello.
Except for that. This came from my son.
That's why you look so wise. Right on, man. Yeah, you look great.
Liner. I got the liner, see?
Yeah, you got the liner. That's a Nephilim line.
Yeah. Well, I've kind of messed it up a little bit, but
that's okay.
Take the hat off. Shouldn't have taken the hat off. There we go. Now I look right. Go ahead.
Now you look like Gandalf.
Gandalf, the wizard.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are a wizard.
Yeah.
Hey, Lou.
Hey, Lou. The light goes down the tunnel, Rex.
Yeah, man.
You are a legend. Yeah, we've had some fun, Rex. I think we're going to have a lot more. But, you know, in fact, you were, talking about degrees of freedom. Everybody's 6 degrees of freedom from knowing anybody. So you're just 1 degree from knowing Peter Pride, because I know him. And I've had him to Huntsville, Alabama. I've had him to Alabama 3 times. Twice to Huntsville, 1 to Montgomery. And I've got his email, his phone numbers, and we've exchanged email and had a lot of good conversations. And I have a lot of admiration for Dr. Peter Vincent Pride. He is the dean of power grid defense, in my humble opinion. There's a lot of people, a lot of high caliber people involved in it, very active in it. There's a lot of people that are really trying to push to get the power grid hardened and do the right things. But, first people have to really understand the threat, because this country is dragging its feet on hardening the power grid, Rex. It's dragging seriously. And I did a video recently in which I mentioned this, and I will do some more, and I'll talk about it, off and on a lot. In fact, I'm going to have Dr. Peter Vincent Price on my channel. I'm scheduled to interview him Wednesday. If you got me thinking maybe I should try to advance that up a day. I did have tomorrow as an option. I just thought Wednesday would be a better day to post it. You know how YouTube works. But, but it is very hot news-wise, so I have to think about that if I can still advance it. But I am scheduled with him Wednesday, so we're going to do an interview. And I'll have it live. I'll have it posted on my channel. I'm not going to do it live, but I'll post it on my channel probably Wednesday evening, so everybody can stay in tune for that. That's going to be a heck of an interview, because I've got a background, and I'm an electrical engineer. I work system safety. I do avionics system safety on rockets right now, and I've done many other rocket type of work also. But my background is electrical engineering, and I do care a lot about our country, about our safety. In fact, Rex, if you recall, this is when I first came to you, is because I was doing all these conferences, and I saw you talking this topic, and you had a big channel, and I thought, well, maybe you guys would be interested to know that I'm doing this conference down here. And we hit it off from there, and we've had a lot of fun ever since. But that's what got me on your channel in the first place, as some of your readers and watchers may recall. And the thing is, I'm involved in a lot of stuff. I tell people the proposition of my channel is to help you survive, thrive, and stay out of the hive. And this is definitely fits in the surviving and thriving, because power is the Achilles heel. It's the linchpin of our modern society, Rex. What a lot of people don't realize is that without electric power, you don't pump fuel. You don't pump water. Without pumping fuel, without pumping water, and there's nothing in the bank accounts, because all the electronic money transfer, internet, servers, banks is all electronic. Money doesn't exist for the most part, except in ones and zeros in banks somewhere. It's not like they have ledgers like they used to, and even the vaults, there's some money there, but it's very little. It's almost nothing. So the whole society can just go poof. There'll be no cell phone. There'll be no Facebook. There'll be no internet. Unfortunately, there'll be no YouTube if the power goes down. That would really mess our lifestyles up quite a bit there, Rick. So we do have a strong interest in keeping the power going as much as possible. The thing I worry, so the EMP task force back about 12 years ago, maybe about 13 by now, did a analysis, and they said that 9 out of 10 people would be dead within a year, would perish within a year if we lost our power grid. And that was based on, you know, you wouldn't have the water, you wouldn't have the food, the fuel, but it's more than that. It's, you know, you would have what water people could find would be infected, nasty, people be drinking nasty water, getting infections, disease, more disease would pass around, people would be dying, had disposing of the bodies would be problematic, people would start fighting each other. They were, I guess, basically banking on rural people to carry the surviving population. But I've done surveys, Rex, and I've determined maybe 1 out of 8 farmers really grows a garden of any size at all. And so I'm expecting it's really going to be like 1/8 of that. And even all that discounts the problem with the spent fuel rods in nuclear power plants, Rex. There is about 300 times more nuclear material in spent fuel rod pools waiting on the lights to go out to go up and smoke. Essentially, you have to have electric power to pump water on to keep them cool. They're under 20 foot of water per gallon, evaporate about 60 gallons a minute. And the rods are clad in zirconium alloy, zircaloy is what it's called. And that alloy burns on contact with air. And it's also been inside the reactor at one time. So it gets enriched with things like hydrogen. And so it gets very, very flammable on top of that. But I've had some people arguing about that, but Sandia National Laboratories, I got the test results where they tested these things without the enrichment, and they burn. They absolutely did burn. Now, zirconium is the same kind of stuff. You know, some guys might give their girlfriends for an engagement ring, but this is a little different. But when it's hot, it will burn on contact with air after it's been in these reactors. So, but this alloy is very susceptible, but it's what they need. Why they use that, Greg, everybody may ask. Well, they use it because still won't hand up the bombardment of the neutrons that occur inside the reactor. Now, if the reactor operators are smart and really understand what's going down, they will inject massive amounts of boron into the nuclear reactor itself. And since it's got a containment dome, the worst thing that will happen is that the heat from the core, it'll stop the nuclear reaction. The heat from the reaction, though, may make the core melt and go down through the crust and contaminate the groundwater, possibly. And that's quite likely. But at least the stuff won't be all in the air. But these spent fuel rod pools just have a sheet metal roof over them. And so we can expect a lot of trouble when those things start burning. That sheet metal roof will just burn out, and all that stuff will just go up in the air, Rick. So it'll be awful. Be careful. So I'm going to change hats. I'm going to honor your buddy there a little bit. Rex gave me a bunch of hats the other day. He sent me a gift bag. I showed it on my video open. This kind of the shirt, right?
Yeah.
This is for Diamond. Hi, Diamond.
Yeah, that's an Oppenheimer Ranch project hat. And I was just going to say real quick on that liner that you got, there's actually, because you're showing it off, but if you spend a minute on it, you can tuck it into the right. hat to make it fit good, where you can just put it on and it doesn't flop all over the place. But I know you just wanted to show it off because of the way that it is. And I appreciate that, man. Yeah, he did a video where he showed off the care package, and you got the EMF wallet, right? Right. It's that's what I put it at. That thing's cool. Yeah. I can put my phone in this wallet, and you can't call it. They can track you. This is a great way to secure your phone. If you want to travel around and not be known, this is how you secure your phone. That's a good jingle. You know, you could be playing the guitar singing that. Well, you know, every girl's crazy about an EMF wallet. Nice. Nice. You know, Rex, see, here's the thing. A lot of people don't understand how we can cut up and have fun talking about doomsday and the end of the world. But the truth of the matter is you got to keep your humor up. The truth of the matter is you got to be prepared, not scared, as you said earlier. These are the key things. You've got to get ready. The objective of this isn't to scare the wits out of everybody. It's to make everybody have the resolve to get the power grid fixed. So this won't be the problem that it would be otherwise.
one way to disincentivize a country from attacking you is to render their attack useless, for Pete's sake. That is one thing that can be done. I also do believe in the power of prayer and meditation. I do believe we can pray and meditate our way into a better timeline in the multiverse. I believe, it's commanded in the Bible, and that we pray. Why would God command you to pray? That's kind of an interesting conundrum in and of itself. Why would the creator of all need your prayers? It's because we're co-creators, and the way he set this universe up, he's allowing us some free will. That's when we have a multiverse, Rex. So we're really going off the tangent here. But then that's what a multiverse does, everywhere, off all kind of tangents. That is a multiverse, and that is the definition of free will. Because without it, all time would be one timeline, and we would be locked in no matter what. You would have absolutely no free will, no choice. It might seem like it, but it would in fact not be the case. That would mean that God would be a tyrant. And then when I say God, I'm talking the bigger G, the greater creator, that's somewhere above and beyond all of this stuff. I don't think putting a name on something that big is, that's a human term, a name. I don't see how that fits something like that. A name or a gender, all these things we like to sign everything. This is way bigger, so it makes no sense to talk about it in those terms. In my humble opinion, of course, this is
well said. That's great. I'm glad you brought that up. And so we have a choice, and the multiverse thing brings up a good analogy, because if we are co-creators, then let's co-create this world where we will not have something as catastrophic as an EMP attack. Let's avoid this. And let's also talk about how do you get the government, how do you get local governments, state governments, and maybe the federal government to support and pay for the measures to protect these nuclear stockpiles and these spent fuel rods, as well as the nuclear reactors. Because I think they've only got a few days of power if they essentially don't have access to power, right? Like backup power.
Okay, yeah, what happens here, Rex, is that you have batteries, which are good for a few hours to run the plant when the power goes down. There's usually backup batteries. And then there is backup diesel generators. They have a big bank of these giant locomotive, submarine type electric generators for huge engines that run, huge diesel engines. They run and create electricity to keep the pumps running to supply the water to the spent fuel rod pools and to the plant itself. So they're trying to keep everything cool. And as long as these things can run, you're safe. The problem is they only have a few days worth of fuel there at the plant. Greg, they'll just truck it in. Well, that'll last as long as trucks run. The problem is you got to have electric pumps to pump the fuels to drive the trucks. And even if you figure out how to keep that going for a while, the trucks, those pumps and everything have a logistics supply chain. They require a lot of maintenance to keep these trucks going. And all that stuff starts breaking down. At the same time, the drivers are worried about somebody breaking in the door at home and taking mom and the kids. They don't even want to be out on the road. You've got to have provisions to secure the families of people providing essential services in a catastrophic situation like this. So these things have to be thought ahead. That is the role of the state and the National Guards and local sheriffs. So that you can coordinate that directly through your state EMA director. So you can go to your state EMA director, and Dr. Peter Vincent Pry and Dr. Stephen Smith went and gave a briefing to the state EMA director, the special projects director for Governor Kay Ivey, and the head of our Public Services Commission, Twinkle Kavanaugh. We had about 20 people in attendance in that room, including a representative from Alabama Power. Nobody argued with us, Rex. Nobody argued with us at all. I mean, I had 2 PhDs, a physicist, and Peter Pry with me there, and we made the case for why this was important, why the threat of electromagnetic pulse is real. So what we're talking about here, Rex, is a high altitude EMP. It's called a HEMP. This is the principal thing we're most worried about. This could be delivered by multiple means. One is you could put a nuclear device on a satellite, and as it's orbiting over, it could go off overhead. That is known, and it wouldn't even have to be in a full orbit. It could be its first orbit. That is known as fractional orbit bombardment. It was a concept invented, I believe, by the Soviet Union. At least it's mostly credited to them. Doesn't mean we didn't invent it, but as you may be aware, in 1961 and 62, we were setting off using Redstone rockets, which were developed, in Huntsville, Alabama, Redstone Arsenal, to launch nuclear devices out in the South Pacific. And they discovered EMP from knocking out a lot of stuff in Hawaii, which is like 1,400 miles from this test site with these smaller nukes. They weren't even up that high. The Redstone rocket's a suborbital rocket. You might remember Alan Shepard he was our first American astronaut to go into space, but he just did a little suborbital hop into the Atlantic off Cape Canaveral on top of a Redstone rocket. Although we did launch our first satellite from a Redstone rocket, basically. It was redubbed the Jupiter C. All that said, these rockets delivered these devices into space and exploded, and that's how we discovered the EMP, the hemp, and the effects of it. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is it doesn't take a ginormous nuke to create an EMP. In fact, the smaller ones work better. I mean, the ones like 300 kiloton size that North Korea has been testing, and everybody's been laughing at, is a perfect size for an EMP weapon, because the more material, more radioactive material you got in it, the more it shields the gamma rays. The product of an EMP superweapon is gamma rays. The gamma rays come out from the device, and when they hit the upper atmosphere, they hit the atoms in the upper atmosphere, and they cause electrons to shower off, and you get a cascading effect. I suppose you've seen a lot of times the diagrams of a cosmic rays coming in the atmosphere, and it looks like some little thing comes in and just showers out. Those are secondary particles that are stripped off from the atom, hitting other atoms, causing more secondary particles, and you get that with gamma rays too. You get a similar effect. And what you get here is a surge of electricity from the electrons stripped off of the atoms in the upper atmosphere. So you literally get a wave of electricity, and it comes in three forms. It comes in E1, which is the short wave that will fry small devices such as your cell phone, because the frequency is so high, the shorter circuits will pick it up. You get a type of that's called E2. E2, Rex, will, it's like super lightning. It's like supercharged lightning. It's the actual electricity itself, and it will be pretty strong. And then E3 is long wave radiation. It will be picked up by power lines. It will be picked up by rail lines. It will be picked up by pipelines, because it's very long frequency. It will go through the ground and come up through the ground and hit the ground taps on your transformers and fry them out. So the way you protect your grid from it is put a lot of surge blockers on the ground center tap of the transformer. And even if it's coming from the other way, you don't complete a complete circuit. So there's ways to put surge blockers and Faraday cages and things like that. We absolutely can protect our grid for the cost of something on the order of a B-2 bomber. At least we're doing that part of it. So it is a cost, but it's minuscule compared to what we spend on our rest of our defenses. But the industry really has been fighting us at every turn to stop it. So so we're working. I had a guy on my channel back a few months ago, Command Sergeant Major Mike Mabey, and he is working to try to get disclosure of all the areas where the power companies have messed up, and what we've been trying to sweep under the rug. He's trying to get that made public. So we're working on disclosure and several other things to try to get people to wake up to what's needed to be done, and also support an organization has a weekly teleconference called Secure the Grid. So there's quite a few of us working together at different organizations and different levels to try to get our grid hardened. And I'm sure we can sponsor, if we can get everything going, we can, enough interest, we can sponsor legislation. The good thing is, this article somehow got noticed this time. We've hit other things in the past and they didn't get note. This time it got noticed. Maybe it's because people are suddenly figuring out that, maybe the CCP, and we're talking about a party, not the people or the country, but maybe their party of control might be somewhat less than trustworthy today. And so there's a lot of doubts. They definitely are rattling the sabers around the world. They're getting adventurous. They're getting aggressive. They're taking the South China Sea with a 9-dash line, which is way beyond anything that they should have with it. They're actually in the middle of what's considered the economic zones of other island nations, the Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam. They are really stepping over their toes or trying to stop people from using the free rights of passage that are internationally acceptable for maritime trade. And that's why the United States is going there, kind of challenging on some of that stuff. So we are at the precipice of a potential conflict. And the thing that worries me the most now that the economy in China is hit the drink because of the things going around, shall we say, that the leadership may find it necessary to mollify their people. And we know there's an old tactic that world leaders have often used in times of stress to rally their country behind them, and it's known as wag the dog. So given, and all this aggression they're showing may be a sign that they're moving in that direction. See, for a long time, it was not in their benefit to do anything like that because they were trying to survive on the goodwill of other countries as they encroach more and more control and as they're trying to grow their economic sphere. It appears that they have reached the limits of that, and that their get out of jail card has expired, if you will, that they're now being challenged by a lot of countries. And so they're kind of snapping back on a lot of that stuff. A lot of countries are wary now. So that means they may change tactics. That's why they're dangerous. Now, we should look at it like this. They may decide that, well, the United States is the one power in the world that's in our way of taking everything else. Maybe they would like to take us out for that reason. Or maybe they would think, if we hit the United States with an EMP, 9 out of 10 people would be dead in a year, and we could just go in and mop them up and take the country, and we'd have this big breadbasket and great land. So they wouldn't necessarily want to throw a lot of ICBMs over here that would radiate the heck out of this country, although it would probably be irradiated anyway, just from the nuclear power plants. I don't know how well they thought this out, or if they would try to come in earlier to prevent that. Who knows? You don't think it would be the cakewalk for them that some people think, even though they may have a fair-sized military. I would submit that their military is a bunch of single parent only childs that have been spoiled most of their lives, and they're a very command structured system. I think they would have a hard time against the hardened Americans that had survived whatever happened, especially considering that we are known to be, we're known to arm bears, So I think they'd have a hard time at it, but that don't mean they wouldn't try it. So I don't know what would happen, Rex. Of course, they may just leave this country alone and go after Africa and Asia and Siberia. I think there's a good chance that India and China might really get into it. There's something called Thucydides' trap. It's a concept derived by Graham Allison, who is one of the great thinkers in Harvard University and historians. Graham Allison looked at the first historian, Thucydides, in his description of the Peloponnesian Wars, describing how when a rising power meets a entrenched power, the tensions that occur then and how it leads to war. I mean, the power that's already up here does not want to be displaced by these guys down here. These guys here absolutely plan usually to surpass these guys and maybe supplant them, replace them, take them over. So there's a lot of tension anytime like that when you have a situation along that order. In the last 500 years, Rex, there's been 16 instances of that kind of tension in the world, and in 75% of them, they resulted in war. The ones that didn't were like the United States and Great Britain in World War II, where we're helping Great Britain. A couple of Spain, Portugal, where the church adjudicated and divided the world between them. So there's good reasons for why the others did not. One of those was Russia and the United States. And so you might question, we had a pretty hot Cold War in pockets. We did have proxy wars. And the situation was that I don't think Russia ever really was a power that could have rose up to the level of the United States. But the economic engine of China is quite an exception. They have quite an economic engine, or had quite an economic engine. They have a lot of factories, a lot of capacity. We put a lot of our factories and capacity out of commission as we started buying more and more from them. So they're the producer, we are not. What people need to understand is America won every war it ever won by attrition, simply because it outproduced its enemies. We can't do that right now. We can't outproduce our enemies. Although a war like that might be over in just a matter of days, so it might be more what you got in your hip pockets. But I hope we never get a situation like that, Rex. Let's hope that it don't happen. I want us to pray and meditate that it don't. And let's push to get our grid hardened so we we reduce the benefits. I mean, it's like this, Rex. One EMP device over, you know, a couple hundred miles up on satellite or coming in over with a missile. It don't even have to have a reentry vehicle. It don't even have to be precise targeted. Some people says, well, you know, North Korea don't have good reentry vehicle technology. They don't have precise targeting. It don't matter. In fact, they don't need it. They wouldn't even want it for an EMP device. You could literally take out an entire country like the United States, a multi-trillion-dollar economy with one device. They would probably send a couple just for reserve. And so that is something that you got to be concerned when your whole country is that vulnerable to something that simple. Oh, but Greg, we'll know it came from there and we'll just sneak the heck out of them. Well, I've often thought this, Rich. I thought, well, if somebody really wanted to hit us like that, they would bring it in from the south part of the United States, because our dew line, our radars that monitor for stuff are all to the north, looking over the Arctic Ocean. And they would want to go from some unstable location that nobody suspects, where everybody else is involved, so nobody knew exactly where it picked. And I was already thinking Venezuela. An ocean launch off the coast of Venezuela would be the perfect scenario for someone that wanted to do this. I was thinking this in the back of my mind. I wasn't talking to Rex. There's military analysts who can't even come up with this, because it's a perfect military sneak attack approach, or if they are doing it, they haven't said anything about it. And then here comes this farm girl from Wisconsin who had this vision. She didn't even know what an EMP was. And she started checking around. Stacy Zavicki. She's got her own homesteader channel, Sustainable Stewards. And she's a tough girl. I like her channel. I watch her channel. I recommend it. She came on my channel and explained this vision she had, Rex, for 2 devices launched from the ocean, which is the way I would see it, because then you have to be involved in the country of Venezuela. Oh, by the way, North Korea had a stamp steamer called the Chong Gang steaming around in the Gulf of Mexico and in the Caribbean Sea area. And when it passed through the Panama Canal on the way back, they decided to inspect it, and they found under piles of sugar bags was 2 fully erect missile launchers in the cargo hold as it was steaming around. Was it just a dry run? It was out there somewhere in the waters at the same time. The Metcalf station took a ballistic attack on their transformers next to San Jose, which happened also on the same day, the first time the North Korean satellite flew over Washington, D.C. Highly interesting, highly interesting. So, you know, North Korea could be an actor, or they could be used as a patsy or a cover for something like this. But the fact of the matter is, China has this technology. China's had it, and China's even practiced it. In fact, they've used it, a similar technology, a local high magnetic burst, to disable one of our ships at sea. So they've made threats to EMP our ships that are crossing our 9-dash line going into the South China Sea. They've already threatened us on that. So they've already shown some willingness to use this. They have a good command of that technology, Rex. It's not to be taken lightly, as could North Korea, as could Russia, as could possibly even Iran. Any and all of these guys are out playing in Venezuela right now. So if something comes from that direction, who done it?
You know, what's interesting about that is there's a TV series on Amazon called Jack Ryan, and it's based on, I think, a Tom Clancy novel, or maybe it isn't, but regardless, the series, the second season, Venezuela is the main threat in this series, based upon its logistics and how they could get possibly some type of device in the U.S. from that area. So, wow, man.
That's the problem. Venezuela is basically a failed country that's communist leaning, that has all these guys in play down there. It's got the North Koreans go down there. The Russians and the Chinese are real heavily involved in Venezuela. Iran trades with them. I mean, and Iran has intercontinental ballistic missile type capability. They've got satellite launch capability. They've already launched satellites from Iran. I've covered it on my channel. So, and, you know, some people say, well, they don't have enough uranium to make a nuke. We know they can make a triggering device. I just heard several years ago that when the Soviet Union broke up, the two complete ICBMs come up missing out of Kazakhstan. It's believed they were traded to Iran. Pure conjecture. That would be classified if we're true, and I didn't get it through a proper source, so I'm not legally reviewed as classified material. This is hearsay. But one has to wonder. I mean, look at it. We all know that the black market in nuclear material was wide open. I mean, the Russians were almost starving to death when the wall fell, and there was material just laying around. You know, when you have a high potential on one side and a low potential on the other side, you know, the energy stuff's going to go this way. It's like, you know, water with the dam is the only resistance. As that resistance goes down, it transfers. Well, you know, wasn't a whole lot of distance and resistance between Russia and some of these other places that want that stuff. Most likely, it's been known that some people were trading materials so they could buy a refrigerator. I mean, Rex, so we were in a precarious position at that time. It's also thought that there were 80 loose backpack nukes. That is another thing that's been put out there in the media some years back. I don't know, Rex, but there's plenty to be concerned with in that regard. I would expect, though, that I would really expect China's got the most to gain. They have the means, the motive, and quite a few other things. They have the means, the motive, and the materials, the manpower. They've got everything it would take to pull it off. Also, does North Korea, but North Korea would be really crazy. But then again, North Korea may be crazy anyway. So, and China might goad them into something like that. And I say China, I'm not talking about the people of China, as you pointed out. And I have pointed out in my videos quite often. There's wonderful people there. China has got a lot of wonderful people there. I would not, you know, every creed, color, nationality, and religion on this planet has a lot of wonderful people that are part of it. And I would say, by and large, most of the people that adhere to any of these are great and wonderful people. But sometimes what floats to the top and winds up running things are people who are somewhat less than great and wonderful, and because they're power hungry or sociopathic. And these organizations, especially when they don't have the checks and balances to contain and restrict power, become a problem. That's why I do promote freedom. That's why I promote things. I've done some videos on that. Freedom does matter, especially when you got the checks and balances to ensure that, you know, that little triad of things I talk about. Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. He who has a goal or power makes the rule, and birds of a feather flock together. These three things make a powerful dynamic that leads to any system getting corrupt over time without a whole lot of checks and balances. Even with a whole lot of checks and balances, it gets corrupt. It just takes longer. And our founding fathers understood that quite well. That's why they threw so many checks and balances in our system, and they really thought it would only last 50 years. Because why? Because they've seen it so much throughout history, Rex.
Wow. You know, it's interesting, and you bring up some great points, Greg, and I'm thinking to myself, with the media being so good at spinning people's emotions, you know, it's a science, it's an art, it's all of the above. And some people in particular, certain age brackets, you get into the older age brackets, I've noticed especially, they spend a lot more time on the news, watching the mainstream news that's coming out there, because that's just the way that they were raised. You know, I mean, so
I think
we need to get everybody to a position where they can at least have an opportunity to hear the information that maybe certain agendas don't want them to hear. And when we talk about this solidifying the grid, this is so important. Any billionaire out there should be thinking, how can I help the United States and the world with this securing the grid? Because, you know, yeah, you may have your bunker now, you may be good now, but what about 20 years from now? What about 30 years from now when they, you know, it's going to be like The Walking Dead. They're going to be looking for that bunker. Bunker. You know, I mean, let's keep things flowing. Let's keep things smooth, and you know, maintenance can go a long way.
The survivors are going to resent them when they're in the bunkers. They're going to hunt those bunkers out. They're going to be looking for the air shafts. They're going to be diverting rivers and water and pipelines and fuel and exhaust pipes and anything they can in those bunkers to wipe the guys out in them. You know, so all those underground bunkers and deep underground military bases, you know, they're going to be coming out a few at a time, and they're probably going to get cherry picked. So I think that's the last place you want to be when all this hits. You know, so those people that are counting on that for security might be in for a rude awakening or permanent sleep. You know, the people are going to resent them. People are going to be mad. The ones that managed to survive up top, they're going to think these guys did it. You know, and how I know that? Because that's what everybody's telling me on my channel. people on my channel, when I get comments, they're saying, hey, it's going to be an inside job. It's not going to be Chinese. Now, right or wrong, I'm just telling you what people are telling me, how people are thinking. And the powers that be need to understand that's how people are thinking. They need to wake up and think, you know, we better fix this grid, because the people really are be coming after us with pitchforks, because they're thinking no matter what happens that we did it. And that's exactly what people are thinking. So folks need to wake up. If you're in a position of power in the government and you're thinking you're smug and secure, you're not. You need to think about this stuff. You need to do your job and protect this country and get the grid hardened, so that we're not all in a whole lot of trouble down the road, and you're not immune from it. If you think you are, you're delusional. And here's another thing that you pointed out, Rex. Think about all the great civilizations that we think existed before, Rex. What happens? You have a catastrophic event. You lose your infrastructure. All the pieces don't fit together anymore. You start, things wear out. You may have all kind of backups and Faraday cages to secure your devices, but what happens when it wears out? All material devices wear out, break down. It won't be a matter of time. You're suddenly back to sticks and stones. That's why the Anunnaki were fighting with spears and bronze swords, Rex. That's all they had. You read all kind of readings, and you're talking about them using spears, right? Think about these things that you read on your channel. They're using whoever they were, wherever they were from. Even if it was another island over the way, they probably were more advanced at one time than the people whom they were amongst. And it might have been from Atlantis, who knows? But they were suddenly living at the same level of the people around them in terms of technology, because all this stuff breaks down, it wears out, and you require a large infrastructure to keep it all going. I did a video called The Fragility of Our Society, in which I talked about that very thing. How, and it was, and I read a story that's called I Pencil by supposedly a first-person account by No. 2 Pencil, for why it takes a cast of thousands to produce it. And that was written in the 1950s, before we had internet servers and computers. So now it'd be cast of millions to produce a single No. 2 pencil. So when all this stuff breaks down, you've got a real problem. And I worry about even the breakdowns that we're having now due to the all the shutdowns and things going on. A lot of factories that aren't fully operating. I mean, I can't go. I'm a prepper. I had 4 pallets of alcohol. I'm down to 1/2 of one now, because I use a lot here in my garden operation and worm farm. So I had enough. It's been good for several months, but it's totally running out. No, I would probably be able to make my own if I needed to, but that's the odd thing, Rex, is that a lot of just odd things just drop out of the system. Well, what happens when it's a critical spring or a critical seal or valve that you require to make all these different devices work? What happens when it's just the roller bearings that run the assembly lines? You can't do those no more. You're not making the parts. I mean, there's just so many parts that every factory relies on, so many parts that every Mack truck needs to run. There's so many parts, so many pieces, so much that's required to keep our infrastructure together. When you hit it with something like this, everything just starts unraveling, especially if you can't pump fuel. I mean, Rex, without fuel, without electricity, you don't have anything. The society is gone fast. In our modern technological society, electricity is the linchpin. It is Achilles heel. And I know a lot of people go, well, we'll just live like we did in the 1700s. Most people don't know how to do that. They don't have the systems to do that with. How many people have a washboard? I do. How many people, though, are really prepared to live without electricity? Do they understand the amount of work that our ancestors used to have to accomplish to do what they did to make a meager living? I mean, they scratched and scratched hard day and night just to be able to eat. And they didn't have any belongings. They was just to survive. They worked and worked hard. I did a video on my dad when he was talking about that. And my dad passed away in March 20th. But if you go back and look at my videos, I specifically wanted him to talk about that, because I knew what the answer was and how they did that. And a lot of people just aren't prepared for that level of work. The people that lived in the 1700s, Rex, ate an Olympian meal or diet about every day. They were burning 4,000 calories, 5,000, 6,000 calories a day, Rex. And they were slim and fit. I mean, they were just banging it all the time. I mean, just banging it, just like they were in Olympic training. That's what it took. And our society is not so prepared for that today. So we don't have to go there if we can just keep the power and the lights on. If we can keep the lights on, life will be better. It doesn't mean you shouldn't prep, because you can have economic failures. You can have a lot of other things hit you on the head. But power is the last thing you want to lose. It really is. A lot of people think, oh, we'll reset society and we need to get away from these computers. Oh, that might be true. But the problem is when the grid goes down, you're going to have hordes of hungry zombies, like you talked about earlier, just out everywhere. You're going to have these nuclear power plants to contend with. You're going to have to worry about these spent fuel rods. You have to worry about 280 to 300 times more radioactive material getting released into the air than a full-scale nuclear war would release. Rex, that's not trivial. You might think you'd survive it, but you got to admit, having that much radiation released into the environment is somewhat less than trivial. So how many people can survive? What are the real global effects? And most of the heavier particles will fall out close to the nuclear power plant. But, you know, we had stuff coming here from Fukushima. You know, the lighter weight particles. You know, you may remember there were radiation detectors all over the United States for picking. There was a whole network of radiation detectors. They used to be on the internet, and they took that internet site down. Can you find any more, Rex? You went around measuring radiation, right? What do you know about that?
No, I remember when there were multitudes of radiation detectors that were hooked up to a network online, and people could go to the state. They could see what the readings were of the state and the area, the geographic area. And some of those are still available, but I don't know about, there was a couple that seemed to kind of, I don't know where they went, but, you know, I can't answer that. So that I will say that I think the overall, like they've done a lot of cleaning up there, and they've got all this like radioactive dirt that a lot of it's, they're saying they're going to have to put back into the ocean, which is really unfortunate. You know, they're like, well, we ran out of space. What do we don't know what we're going to do? We're probably just going to have to dump it back in the ocean.
Did anybody ask the fish about this?
I mean, ask what about the rest of the world that share the ocean? It's not just theirs, you know.
Yeah, we treat the ocean like it's some big sewer, but that's where our oxygen comes from. The ocean is the basis. It's the beginning of our global food chain. The ocean is our true lungs. We talk about the rainforest, well, they give us a lot, but the oceans give us the bulk of it. You know, how much can we just keep mistreating the ocean, Rex? That's horrible.
No, it's absolutely terrible. And so this is what I propose. I propose that with all of these job losses and with this transition in markets, why don't we figure out a way to get the polls of ticks to write into law, and the legislative branch, those that are actually a part of these new laws and new bills and rules and regulations and funding? Why don't we come up with jobs and careers and positions for innovation? Let's hire people to go out and solidify these nuclear reactors. Let's go out and find people to secure the spent fuel rods. And I've heard of technologies that they can actually make some of these fuel rods much safer, and come up with what am I looking for here? Grants and funding for people that are going to college and very smart minds that want to come up with solutions, because that's what we need to do right now. We're at a point where the economy is, you got all these big corporations, these humongous corporations that have more money than certain countries. And do they really have our best interest at heart? Do they have just the stock's best interest and those that hold the stocks and the big bucks, the MFers? What are we going to do about it? Well, let's come up with some solutions, microeconomies and I will say this, I do see that there is some good to the transitioning of globalism to microeconomies and local economies because of the corona. There's been people that have had to come up with new innovative ideas and get their stuff locally. So I'm actually going to start getting my meats at a local butcher around here that's in New Mexico. That's just half an hour. I think they're charging $5 for a pound of ground beef that's fed there on their ranch versus going and spending $8 at the store at Wally Mart. It's $8 a pound now for ground beef, dude.
Well,
crazy.
There are a lot of solutions that we can work on. And I believe this shirt you gave me says, what's it say back here, Rex? Can you read that?
It says, be the change you want to see.
All right, well, let's start it now. So
let's do
all
it.
These things are solvable. Everything is solvable. It just takes will. But sometimes it takes us people telling the powers that be, hey, fix this, fix it now. There are more of us than there are of them, Rex.
Greg, how many new jobs could we create for people to go out there and not only solidify the grid, but here's another prime example. Out here in southern Colorado at the higher elevations, the trees, there's so many dead trees from all the beetles, right? In some places, 90%. So instead of just hoping that nothing happens, or if, what if there is a fire and then you've got a terrible fire, and then on top of that, you've got all these carbon emissions that are getting pumped back into the atmosphere. Oh my goodness, Al, we love you. And then on top of that, you've got all this wood that could have been used for something else. And all this money. I mean, that you got money, you got wood, you got supplies, you're cleaning up the environment, you've got new jobs. It's an entire industry.
Yeah, well,
they could do it right now. Do it.
There's many ways to tackle this, and many things can be done. The first thing people need to do is to seek out their local state EMP direct, not EMP, EMA, Emergency Management Association directors. They need to go to their state public service commissions. Now, some states have elected public service commissioners, most don't. So it may be a little bit more work in the states where that's an appointed position. Maybe you got to go to your governor's office and work through your governor, or whoever you've got to work through. Go to your state legislators and talk to them to get things pushed at your state level, but also the federal level matters. So I will, I can post some stuff later on my website, or I'll put it on my channel after I do the interview with Peter Vincent Pry, Dr. Pry's interview, which again, I'm doing Wednesday. And so I'll be posting this interview Wednesday, unless I advance it tomorrow. I don't know if we can make a change that late, probably not. But that's the plan, Wednesday. So watch for that. And I'll be asking some of the same questions to Dr. Pry. And I'll be coming on with some other videos, because I've already done this in part with Command Sergeant Major Mike Mabey. I believe we can start a movement. One of the things I have started is a tribe movement to try to develop micro communities, tribes, and whatever you want to call them, throughout the country, survival tribes, micro communities. So I'm organizing a list of people, and anybody that's interested in that can email me at hal5@aol.com, and I've got an assistant helping me some, because Rex, I'm so busy right now, it's insane. There are a few people that I'm planning to respond to directly, and so if you wonder why you hadn't heard yet, it's probably because you're one of those. Because some of you that I've talked to, or you are prior contact of mine, or there's some reason I want to talk to you. Okay, I ran out of space. So there's some other writing on this page. I'll just go to HAL5, the number 5, HAL5, SPACE. Yeah, my writing's terrible. I'm an engineer, at AOL.com. So that's, they can email me there if they're interested in this tribe movement, because I'm also thinking we can organize this into an organization that we can also apply some pressure to the politics. There's so many ticks, politics. So there's so many of them. The blood suffers, right? So yeah, we can apply pressure to these people to get them to do things. That's one thing I would like to do. And also do have a website that's, you can get some resources and background information from, powergriddefense.org. And so we're going to be getting more proactive in this. You can, of course, you should prep and you should prepare yourself as much as you can. And if it includes the Faraday cages and things like that, at least help you to get by for a while. But just bear in mind, these devices won't last you forever. They'll give you an edge for as long as they last, as long as the batteries last and everything else. But at some point, all these things are going to start dying off. So you better learn how to survive. That's one reason I really emphasize grow your own garden. Everybody can grow a garden. Everybody can learn how to forage from the wilds. And I do videos on that. And I got a couple more coming up real soon on that area. So check out my channel and subscribe. Also, I hope we can get off this rock and live in space too. I got a Galactic Greg's channel that talks about moving into space and things about space, and I'll do a lot more videos in it in the near future. Galactic Greg's for that. But once again, there's a lot we can do. And one thing I have often told my viewers is what you pick up on what you were just saying is buy local. The grid goes down, you need people local to you producing things. And if you're buying everything overseas and it's been shipped in, you are not sustainable. You're not supporting your local communities, and you won't be able to get those resources. So strengthen your local economy, your labor, buy local. This is your most powerful vote, is how you spend your money, whatever it is. Whether it be one of these or Bitcoin or a bean. Whatever you use in exchange for money, that is your vote. It's the most powerful vote you have, because the more what you place those in ensures there'll be more of that. The more you vote for it, the more likely you're going to get more of it and be more available. Support your local artisan, your local farmer. You get better deals. It's fresher. It's not burning up a lot of energy to go back and forth around the world. We have mines and things that take stuff in the United States, including produce, ship it to China, process it, and ship it back. So it makes a round world trip in these big dirty steamers, ships. Ask a Lee Wilbarger how much fuel, what kind of fuel these things burn. I believe he'll tell you if you ask him. That there's some of the nastiest fuel grades, fuel there are on the planet, what those big ships burn, the big cargo ships. It's really nasty, and that's what's happened. We've had just fleets of these going around. Globalism is not the answer. A lot of people, including the United Nations, they've got this pact where they're looking in the year 30 how the world ought to look. And it's got everybody living in homes that are rack and stack by the railroad track, just down the track from the smokestack, you know what I mean? That they want everybody to live in and put everybody in the cities and take them off the farm.
Because they love you.
Feed you Franken food so you'll be good and docile and all drugged up, and they'll have to medicate you to make you recover from your food, and you won't be out in nature. You're not going to be allowed to go out in nature, thanks to the Forever Wild. People need nature, and when people are out amongst nature, they take care of it better, especially if they have ownership in it. So, the commons are never well taken care of as land that is not commons. So that really is one of the advantages of having private ownership of land, by the way. And it also enables small farmers. So the small farmer should be the backbone of feeding this country, not these big industrial conglomerates, which will not be sustainable. All these other scenarios are not sustainable. Having small, independent little farmers out there to feed us is going to be what's going to get us through this more than anything. And so that's what we need to support. We need to support also the local tradesmen, the local artisans, everybody that you can, smaller shops, the guys who are local. That's what's going to keep your economy going when it hits the what. So, or when what hits the fan, that is. So that's how we survive. That's the things that we got to do. But we can work to get this grid hardened. We can meditate and pray that maybe Xi Jinping takes a lifelong vacation, decides he don't have the ambition of burning the planet or whatever it is he wants to do. that the people in China become free and liberated, and suddenly, they would be an awesome people if they had real, true liberation, economic and personal freedom. It would be amazing to sit back and see what those individuals would accomplish. I think we'd all go ooh and ow, wow, maybe ow. It'd be a lot of ooh and wow, what the people there could accomplish. And I believe they should have the freedom to try it. So I think we ought to meditate toward those effects, because I do believe there's a lot of beautiful, wonderful, smart, good-hearted people there, just like everywhere else. It's the governments that hold us apart and put us against each other, because if they can always blame somebody else for everything, that gives them power. Oh, it's those guys, and you need me to help defend you from those guys. That's why you got me here and keep me here. So I'll make sure that we can be good, and also we can grow our system. That's what a lot of your tyrants do. They play those games. That's what Adolf Hitler did. He blamed the Jews for everything and told his people they're the greatest people in the world. And it seemed to work at first. They went from being in a horrible depression to an economic rise. But in the end, their country lay in total demise as all the buildings were bombed out and everything was shreds and cinders. The cities were bombed and burnt. So what did it get them in the end? Catastrophe. And so it may look good in the short term, but in the end, it's catastrophe. So that's what we've got to watch. A lot of these solutions that we're being told are like fly bait. They taste sweet at first, but in the end, it's going to get you. So in the end, what really counts is giving people the ability, the freedom to aspire to accomplish things. The individuals have the power. It's the individuals that can do these things. You and me and other people together, Rex, we can do a lot. We can change this world. And I believe everybody needs equal opportunity. There are people of every race, color, creed, and religion that have a lot to bring to the table and offer to get us down the road toward a great, prosperous future. So, but we got to work together. we got to reach out to the other side. The reason I got on these rose-colored glasses, I did a video called Wear Their Rose-Colored Glasses. Everybody in the world has a worldview, Rex. We all have our own way of seeing the world. It may be how we was raised, what we come to think about things. It's how we think the world operates. But we have a bias in how we take in additional information. We take it in such a way that reinforces the worldview we already have. That's how you start interpreting everything. So it's a filter, like your rose-colored glasses, in essence. You see the world according to the way you understand the world. So everything you see starts reinforcing that. So to really understand where these other people are coming from, it helps to put on their rose-colored glasses. And if we do that more often, we start understanding each other better, we can start reaching out in peace. Because, Rex, we can't survive in a world with so much division, so much hatred. Mankind will not survive with all this hatred. Fanning the flames of hatred is not the answer. We have to find ways to reach out and make peace, because the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction is going to happen to the point that small organizations will have horrendous power, especially through bioweaponry. You can almost build a lab for it in your basement. Our final hour, written by Sir Martin Rees, Astronomer Royal, Sir Martin Rees, Astronomer Royal of Great Britain, United Kingdom, excuse me, postulated that we only had a 50% chance of surviving the next 100 years, mainly due to bioarum or bioterror, I mean, just things that get loose accidentally, and other things that he brought up in that book. I'm going to tell you, I think he's an optimist, but I do believe that we can have a better chance that we can survive and thrive and stay out of the hive if we all pull together collectively. We all take the right kind of actions. We all try to make a better world. We start with ourselves. Some people say, well, the whole world's so big. How do I do it? Start with yourself. You know, I was involved in an organization, Rex, in the 1970s called the L5 Society. We took on a UN treaty, and we kept the United States from signing it. It was called the Moon Treaty. A small group of activists, not even aerospace professionals. We were an activist organization, grassroots activist, a small grassroots activist organization. And I've run the halls of Congress many times since then, Rex. I wasn't running the halls back then. We did that through letter writing campaigns, and we hired a lawyer, Lee Ratner, or retainer, however you say his last name, to advance this cause for us. He later would fight against the law of the sea treaty. So we've had a lot of experience with these kind of things, Rex. But I'm here to tell you that individuals can have a lot of power, especially when we work together. And there are more of us than there are of them. Therefore, we have hope. We just got to have the resolve, and we got to push it. And that's what I want everybody to do. Let's come together. Let's fix this. We can do it. I'll be bringing out more stuff, more possible things that we can do as we go down, because I'll be pulling things from the Secure the Grid organization I'm involved in. I'll start posting this on my channel more. I'll get more of the individuals that were from my Power Grid Defense conferences and the Security Grid group on my channel in the future. But we're starting, well, I already had Command Sergeant Major Mike Mabee. He's a real hero. Actually, he saved a life in the World Trade Center, when the World Trade Center building collapses. Now, he gives credit to that guy for saving his life, because he said, well, because this guy couldn't walk, I ran him out of the building because I had to run him out of the building. That's why I'm alive. Take it like a typical hero. He gives some full credit to that guy for saving his life.
Brilliant.
He's
awesome.
He's a great individual. I have the utmost respect for Command Sergeant Major Mike Mabee, and I've got a video with him on the channel, and I will be covering other guys like this. So I may go next to General Krosniak or somebody like that, or Tommy Waller. But I got a lot of good choices to go to in this topic area, and it's really getting hot now. We've got to do something, Rex. I mean, you think about the vision of Stacy Savicki with Sustainable Stewards. If you think about that, it's totally plausible. It's totally the way that I would most see something like it going down. The fact that a farm girl in Wisconsin, it's not a great farm girls. I'm a farm guy, by the way. The fact that she would see something like that is nothing short of amazing. Very prophetic. That gives a lot of credence to what she saw to me. That does not say that it has to happen. The way she saw this was as if it was in December. And I think December is the year of the Chinese year changes to the year of the ox or something. It's supposed to have some significance. I don't know, Rex. But even she believes that we can turn it around. And she believes that, a revival would be the thing to stop it. So prayer, definitely. And that's something we need to consider. More prayer, more action, and prepping ourselves and paying attention to what we can do on the front of politics. There's several things we can do, and I will be coming out with more and more things as I see that to be available. There's things that we can do ourselves to prepare ourselves and our families to get through the tough times that may come. We've already dealt with some things here lately. I think we're on a roller coaster. The Earth's magnetosphere is dropping. And Rex, even if the Chinese don't do anything, if all the powers out there do nothing, the sun can put out a coronal mass ejection, which will give us an E3 type radiation wave that I described earlier. That's the long wave that'll be picked up by the power lines. It can fry your house. It can, and some of these chintzy little things that people are promoting, don't expect those to help you. You know, amperage takes big wires, huge wires to handle, not little chintzy little speaker wires. I mean, if the cables are smaller than the cable on your battery, what do you think, Rex? In your car. So that's what we're talking about. We are saying that we can fix these things, but we've got to work. We've got to get busy. We got to do it now. And I appreciate the opportunity to come on here on your channel and talk about that. I am going to cover this with Peter Vincent Pry. Dr. Pry is going to be one of the most interesting guests I've ever had on my channel because he is very intense. He's got the experience, and it will be a very good talk. Please, everyone, try to watch that talk and subscribe to my channels if you're not already done. A lot of my people come from you. Bang that notification bell, but then go back and check it periodically. Sometimes the algorithms don't like channels that tell you the way things are. For some strange reason, they love us so much, Rex, that they think maybe there's too much love in the world. I don't know.
It's just the gremlins, dude. Don't worry about it. It's just the gremlins. And people love your show, man. So I'm sure they will continue to check out the subscription notifications, make sure that the bell is on, and make sure that the bell is on for all notifications to get access to the live feeds as well. I do want to say, what's that?
I said, including your channel, Rex.
Yeah, why not? And I do want to say in finishing this podcast, this has been an amazing conversation, and we have averted 2 doomsday scenarios just in the past few days. Because remember, the Mayan calendar, they said, nope, it's not 2012 anymore. It's 2020. We were off by 8 years, and it was supposed to be yesterday. We're still here. And then also, remember, we're supposed to have 3 days of darkness, Ring of Fire. It didn't happen. We're still here. Halo. The end of the world is always tomorrow, never today. However, with that being said,
as long as it is always tomorrow, we're good.
Yeah, as long as it's always tomorrow, we're good. Now, as far as what we're talking about, though, we really need to do something quick on this because, like you said, if I'm less worried about other countries, I'm more concerned about the sun.
Well, if we harden the grid because of this, then you're covered with the sun. That's the good news. If you take action to get the grid hardened for this, then when the sun would come back and get us, and it will. The sun will get us if we don't fix this. Absolutely. This is the perfect excuse to get it fixed right so that some nation won't be tempted to take advantage of our Achilles heel, and then we're good for the sun. And then we're good to run. And we have a long, beautiful future.
Got money in the bank, got gas in the tank. I got news for you. You're looking at the man. I love that song. It's one of my favorite songs. I think it came out in the late 80s, but it's just such a classic. Every time I listen to it, I'm like, you know what? The world's going to be okay. Now, on a closing note, on a happy note, I would like to thank everybody for being here. I would like to thank you all for listening, and definitely make sure to subscribe to Greg's YouTube channels as well as my channel if you haven't already. We're on Patreon now. We've moved a lot of content over to Patreon as well as our leakproject.com website. We've got a forum section there that you can leave information for free. You can blog for free. If you want to hear some content that's a little bit more on the, how do I put this? There's certain platforms that you can talk about more things certain times, and you can listen to that exclusively at the leakproject.com website. I think Greg and I have even talked about stuff that I've uploaded exclusively on the website as well, because the world's a crazy place. So we want to make sure that everybody has a wonderful opportunity, and we want to make sure that we can all work together. And folks, be excellent to each other.
Hey, Rex, one thing. Yeah. Just as a side announcement for people that don't know, Rex and I are appearing on a show that's coming on the Weather Channel. And it's
I saw you on there last night at 9 p.m. Eastern, by the way.
Was I on last night?
I saw you, yes.
They told me it was going to be the 19th of July. So
well, it was just it was where you, me, and the pilot were looking at the computer when they were showing us some of that footage. And I thought that I was going to be on that a little bit longer, but the only part that I noticed me on there was where I said, man, is that a giant genie head? Was that a giant? That was my introduction. And, you know, I had a blast getting interviewed on that show, and they actually asked some great questions, and there's a lot of stuff coming up. So hopefully I'll get some more time, because they said that I was going to be on some upcoming episodes. So I think that I might get a little bit more coverage than the giant genie head.
So for everybody,
it looked like a giant genie head, dude, didn't it? It did. It looked like a giant genie head coming out. Like it was wild. It was in Saudi Arabia, or it was in the Middle East somewhere, that footage.
So everybody will know that they did 2 teams for this program, 2 3-man teams or 3-person teams. And they interviewed everyone individually, and they did each team together. So there'll be various combinations of individuals and teams showing in this show. I believe I was told I was going to be on there on the 19th and again on, I think, August the 2nd. It's going to be like Sundays at 9 p.m. or 8, I don't know what time it comes on. I got to double check it, Rex. Is it 9 p.m. Eastern?
9 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, that's what I was
saying.
Yes.
Yes.
9 p.m. Eastern. So it'll be like every Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Weather Channel for some odd weeks. So it'll be entertaining. So check it out. And you see Rex and I, and what was the pilot's name? I should remember his name. He was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed him. He was a blast.
Was it Paul?
Huh?
Was it Paul?
Well, you know, you and I both did a video. For people to know, the 3 of us really hit it off.
He's a comedian now. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he is a fighter pilot and comedian, and really funny. When you look at him, you'd have a hard time believing this guy's a fighter pilot. But it was a lot of fun. So I just want to give a little plug for that, so everybody will know that we'll be out there on that. But Rex, it's always a lot of fun. Anytime I can spend some time with you, we have a good time together, both on podcast and in person. So hang in there, and everybody, there is hope for the future. We just got to work it. It is what we make it. We got to be the change we want to see, as it says on the back of my Leak Project shirt here.
Yeah, man.
Thank you, Rex. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Love you, man.
You too, brother. You too. And may the force be with you, everybody. The show is called Weird Earth. It's a great series. It's a lot of fun to watch. I enjoyed watching there's, I think, been 2 episodes out thus far. And I actually got a streaming service with the Weather Channel included just to watch the shows, because I don't have cable, but I do have a couple streaming services. So now I've got Hulu, Amazon, Netflix. Then I think we got this one called Fubu or Fobu or something. That's the one that I had to get, that's got like all these streaming channels, and the Weather Channel is included. But I got a 7-day free trial with that. So yeah, it's like $70 a month. So I don't know. Anyway, but thanks everybody for being here. Hit that bell, be well, and be the change you want to see.